So my name is Dave Osmundsen. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am originally from New Jersey, and I just received my MFA in dramatic writing from Arizona State University. And my work centers on the intersection of queerness and neurodiversity. I myself am queer and autistic. I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome when I was 3 years old. And I am interested in exploring the intersection of queerness and neurodiversity, and also how neurodivergence can queer neurotypicality, as it were. Neurodiversity is a term that I think is kind of very much in flux right now. It can encompass autism spectrum disorder, ADD and ADHD, dyspraxia, Tourette's, borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, and many others that I am sure I'm forgetting. At its basic definition, I define it as the multitude of differences with which the brain can operate from the way a normal brain might operate. And something I think is really important to mention is that there's this really interesting conversation going on about how you don't have to be born neurodivergent. Like, you can have a brain injury at some point in your life and, be considered neurodivergent, whereas you were neurotypical beforehand. The theater industry does not know how to talk about neurodiversity, especially autism. There's generally like a hesitancy to discuss it. A lot of the neurodivergent and autistic stories are more about the way that it affects the people around the neurodivergent person more than the neurodivergent person. Clay Martin, who's the artistic director of Spectrum Theater Ensemble, where I'm a resident playwright, has this thing where he says, autistic children become autistic adults. And I think we've been so focused on autism being prevalent in children that we don't often know what to do when that child grows up and still is autistic. And I think there just hasn't been much of an attempt to understand autism or autistic people in a nuanced manner. And I think part of that is because of the fact that autism is a spectrum, although personally I prefer describing autism as like a constellation. I feel like constellations have many manifestations and many different stories. And I think autism also has many manifestations and many different stories. I feel like, approaching it from that angle gives way to more nuance for the autistic experience, whatever that will mean to the more than 3.5 million autistic Americans. And if we don't have that representation in the entertainment industry, like if we don't have autistic people telling their stories and creating work, then we lose that perspective. I really hope this industry has learned its bleeping lesson. I hope that theater professionals continue to learn how to speak with and engage with BIPOC individuals. And I hope that they will eventually learn how to speak and, not speak to neurodivergent individuals. I definitely think that the willingness is there. I think part of it is just the lack of vocabulary in terms of how to engage with neurodivergent artists, especially autistic theater artists who, may not have the social skills to really reach out and build the relationships that are necessary for a career in the theater. I can tell you that's something that I've actually struggled with. Autistic people often report very high rates of anxiety, and my own anxiety is something that I'm kind of coming to terms with. So reaching out to, artists or literary managers, etc. I kind of hope that there's more accessibility and equitability and willingness to learn and engage with diversity of all sorts, BIPOC, neurodiversity, etc. I also really hope that, because one huge benefit I've seen from digital theater has been kind of the democratization of theater. I was actually just in a meet and greet with Ralph Pena, who's the artistic director of Ma Yi Theater Company in New York, and he was talking about how they did digital programming and they were able to reach like millions of audience members in Asia, which is more than like would have seen the show in a run in New York. So I think the fact that there is that democratization and the accessibility, like I really hope that it kind of stays that way. Identity is important, but identity is not a virtue in and of itself. Marginalized writers are often held at such a higher standard than straight white dude writers, because when a marginalized creator is telling a story about their own community, it's almost like they're like being policed for, well, did you like represent your community in like the best way possible? Is this authentic? And it's like, as a marginalized creator, I can only say, look, this is my truth. This has been my experience. Does it play into stereotypes? Yes, sometimes, not in a negative way, but because this is what I've encountered in my life. And I feel like we're placing so much emphasis on identity and who has told a story that we're almost forgetting to, tell a good story in the first place. I just think y'all have been really great with keeping in touch with your artists throughout the pandemic, and the way that you encourage affiliated artists like myself to keep up with each other's work and to learn about other writers and what they're doing, and just generally keeping us connected, which I think was so necessary during this time of isolation when we were not always able to see each other at that conference or at that production. So thank you for keeping us all connected.